Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur.
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement, et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Coupe Stanley pour les Canadiens. Leur 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup!
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida TV. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro, the Sick Podcast on this Wednesday, May 14. In all transparency, this podcast was recorded prior to tonight's playoff games between the Florida Panthers and the Toronto Maple Leafs, Game 5 in Toronto, which is probably over by now, unless the game is in overtime, of course, and a game that started at 9:30 p.m., the game between the Edmonton Oilers and the Vegas Golden Knights. And that is the reason why you're not going to hear us talk about the games, because they were recorded. This podcast was recorded beforehand. The Sick Podcast brought to you in part by Playground. What would you do with $2.5 million? Time to find out at Playground. Every hour you play poker earns you entries into their multi-millionaire maker promotion. Join them June 1st from 9:30 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. for hourly draws and your chance to pick 5 lucky cards, hit a royal flush, and you'll instantly win $2.5 million. Visit playground.ca for details. Also brought to you in part by Bittt at Tibi. They launched their new Ultra Lager. It's a refreshing, thirst-quenching beer, perfect for summer with only 90 calories, 2 grams of carbs, 4% ABV per can, available in a pack of 6 and 12 in grocery stores all around the province of Quebec. It's ultra light and ultra refreshing, and also brought to you in part by Souvlaki Authentique. I was there with Craig Button, who's going to join me in just a couple of minutes. Several months ago, I returned thereafter. It's that good. You know them for their amazing and delicious Greek food with 7 locations. New at Souvlaki Authentique for a limited time. You can get your order delivered for just $2 when you order on their website. Yes, just $2. Yes, $2. So go to souvlakiauthentique.com and enjoy fast, hassle-free delivery at an unbeatable price. And they now have a loyalty program. So sign up before your next order and start accumulating points. Yesterday, on Sportsnet, sportsnet.ca, I saw an article regarding new thresholds and offer sheets, new compensation thresholds for NHL offer sheets revealed. I immediately went to take a look at all restricted free agents. And of course, I kept in mind what Jeff Gordon said at the year-end presser, that he expects the trend to be that more offer sheets will be signed. On that note, I said, you know what? I need a GM or a former GM who knows how this works. Craig Button is my regular collaborator on Wednesdays, so I waited for him. Craig, how are you?
You waited for me. That's only because you couldn't get anybody better. So you got who was available. You know, it's amazing, the offer sheet scenario now, or I guess what I would call the offer sheet landscape, especially after what Doug Armstrong did last summer to not only put an offer sheet in on Philip Broberg and Dylan Holloway, but to get those players. And I think what needs to be said to a greater extent, to get those players, and there's 2 parts to this, to get those players at minimal cost. I'm talking about draft pick cost. And based on what they did this year, on real value contracts, like really valuable contracts. So, you know, Doug, when you talk about, you know, Reggie Jackson hit 3 home runs in a World Series game. Doug Armstrong just hit 2. And they were 2 mammoth home runs for the St. Louis Blues. And that's why we arrived today at this landscape surrounding offer sheets.
And you know, it goes to show you is that you don't have to go after the biggest names, because even smaller names can have an impact on your team, could end up playing better on your team than they did on their previous team, depending on who you surround them with, can end up having an impact. And obviously, like you just said, you end up getting them at a better price. So I put together a list of 4 at the forward position, because at a later date, I think we're going to end up having a show where we'll take a look at potential offer sheets of defensemen, and most likely right-handed defensemen, because the Canadiens seem to be stacked at left. And at right, they have a couple going forward with Reinbacher and Mailloux, but who's to say that they're going to play on the team next year or start the year with the Montreal Canadiens? So we'll take a look at a couple of forwards. And but before we do that, let's hear from Jeff Gordon once again at the year-end presser.
I think that you're going to see more of them based around the league. I don't know. I don't know where we'll be with that, but I think that as the cap goes up, it won't be surprising that you'll see more that avenue being used. We saw it last year to some degree of success here. So, but as far as what we're going to do, we'll have to stay tuned. But it's certainly an option, and like I said, you'll see more of it.
Craig, it certainly is an option, but there seems to be a trend in the National Hockey League. Like, Jeff Gordon seems to be saying what he said because it worked out for the St. Louis Blues against the Edmonton Oilers. But in the past, it was something that we heard through the grapevine that some teams shied away from because they wouldn't want it done to them. And there was kind of like an unwritten rule between general managers that, don't do to one what you wouldn't want done to yourself. But it has been done before. There have been several offer sheets that have been signed, but in the end, for example, the Montreal Canadiens themselves, under the previous management team, of course, of Marc Bergevin, they tried to go after Sebastian Aho and sign them to an offer sheet. And of course, the Carolina Hurricanes ended up matching, and Carolina ended up doing the same to the Montreal Canadiens with Jesperi Kotkaniemi, and the Canadiens did not match, and Kotkaniemi ends up a Carolina Hurricane. So take me back to when you were a general manager. Is it an option that you looked at, or is it something that you said, I don't want to look at this because I don't want it done to me?
No, let me get to the second question first. You're always looking at what can strengthen your team, but you also, in any type of scenario, you better be looking at your own vulnerability. And I never looked at it as going, oh my God, if I do this, how will I be viewed? And I think Doug Armstrong poo-pooed that whole idea. He said, if my mother was a general manager in Edmonton, I would have put in an offer sheet on those two players. The job of the manager is to find ways to improve your team. It's a tool there. And as a tool to acquire players, it largely failed. I mean, Dustin Penner was able to move Anaheim over to the Edmonton Oilers. Dustin Penner. There was offer sheets on Keith Tkachuk. There was offer sheets on Joe Sakic. Tony, when we were in Dallas, we put an offer sheet on Sean Gagnon, who we thought was a bottom pair defenseman. He was playing for the Arizona Coyotes at the time, or Phoenix. I don't know what their name. And they matched it. We couldn't even get Sean Gagnon. And that being said, as a tool for acquiring Thomas Vanek, another example, Sebastian Aho, largely never largely not successful in using the tool to acquire player or players. Well, Doug Armstrong showed a different path. And I think that this is now the path that a lot of managers and a lot of organizations are looking at. Okay, how do we find a way using the offer sheet mechanism to get a player? There's a lot that goes into it. What teams could be vulnerable? What players are open to it? What do you have your picks? What's the cost to it? And you factor that all in. One of the things, and I haven't seen it reported anywhere or seen it, one of the key moves that Doug Armstrong made last year in making those offer sheets to the on Holloway and Broberg was if you have an offer sheet against you, and the arbitration window is still open, you get to have another buyout opportunity on your roster. Doug, along with the agents, the offers came out after that window had closed. So Edmonton didn't have another opportunity to get a buyout. And so there was a lot of nuance to what Doug Armstrong did last year. And we look at the compensation. One of the things you have to keep in mind, Tony, is that you could say we're going to go get Tony Marinaro and we're going to offer him $12 million on a 1-year deal. But there's also another mechanism there. It gets divided by 5. It's either the term of the contract or divided by 5, and whatever the lower number is.
Perfect.
So,
I want to bring this up. Actually, there's 2 graphics that we're going to bring up. One
okay,
is the compensation.
Yeah. So anyway, so we'll get into the other parts. But yeah, we considered it. Listen, I had agents propose ideas for an offer sheet, and it didn't make sense because I said we're not going to get the player. We can't get the player. So why are you going to do an offer sheet if you can't get the player?
Let's take a look at the thresholds and the compensation. All right. 1.544 million or less, there's no compensation. Between 1.544 and 2.34, you give up a 3rd round pick. If you sign the player to a salary of anywhere between 2.34 and 4.68, you give up a 2nd round pick. If you sign the player to a contract anywhere between 4.68 and 7.02, you give up a 1st and a 3rd. If you sign the player anywhere between 7.02 and 9.36, you give up a 1st, a 2nd, and a 3rd. If you sign the player anywhere between a salary of 9.36 and 11.7, you give up 2 firsts, 1 second, and 1 third. And if you sign the player over 11,700,192, you give up 4 first-round picks. All right? Maybe we can bring up that graphic a little bit later on. But for now, the next graphic, which will show you when they can, so teams can start talking to RFAs on the night of June 30th. Nothing can be signed until free agency officially opens up at 12:01 p.m. Eastern time on July 1st. And like Craig just said, the AAV of an offer sheet, you divide the salary by term length or 5, whichever is lower. Craig, please explain that.
Okay, I'll use simple math. So you sign a player for $10 million for a 1-year deal, right? Which you could put a team in a whole lot of trouble, right? They might not have cap space for $10 million, right? But that little nuance in there gets divided by 5, so it's only a $2 million cap hit. So that little nuance was put in there to protect teams on that 1-year offer sheet.
Got it.
Because what you could do is to say you go to a team, you go to a player, hey, listen, we're going to offer you $10 million, and then you now have to qualify that player at $10 million the next year or not. Yeah. You have the choice of doing it, but the team that has to match now, they're going, wait a sec, we know what you were trying to do, and so that little if I'm the Players Association, I don't want that in there. I fight to get that 5-year thing out. That's put in there by the league. That's the league that put that in to protect teams. Yeah. Players Association doesn't want that. They want player movement. So it's a little nuance in there, Tony, with respect to, a preventive, I guess it's a poison pill, I'll call it, for NHL teams, just trying to go on a 1 or a 2 or a 3-year deal or something that, becomes prohibitive. And then you go, wait a sec. The AAV is divided by 5 if that's the lower number.
Are the Dallas Stars going to finish off the Winnipeg Jets in Winnipeg in Game 5? Go all the way with Betway and get a free bet up to $200 if your first bet loses. Scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in the details section to create an account. Redeem your welcome offer. Offer is only available for new customers. Terms and conditions apply. Offers not available in Ontario. Must be 18 years of age and older. And please play responsibly with Betway. Also brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group, a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America and driven to be different, a top fleet employer in Canada. Just ask Forbes magazine and Forbes. Check it out. Thank you very much. It's shipenergy.com is their website. Apply. Check out their career section. It's a great place to work and a great business to deal with. And we thank them very much for all their support. So on that note, let's go to some offer sheets. And we have a couple. We have a couple of profiles that we're going to look at, all right? So what do the Montreal Canadiens need? The Montreal Canadiens need offense. The Montreal Canadiens need a second-line centerman. The Montreal Canadiens need more talent. The Montreal Canadiens need more skill. The Montreal Canadiens need to bolster the top 6. The Montreal Canadiens need to add size on their third line. So we took a look at a couple of names, And we're going to start with the least flashiest of the bunch. And he plays for the New York Rangers. And his name is Queille. And he's a restricted free agent. He's a big boy, 6'3", probably over 215 pounds, I would say. And he had an interesting season. For a player who played right wing on the third line, he had 20 goals and 25 assists for 45 points. He's a former second-round pick, drafted 60th overall in the 2020 draft. Relatively young, at 23 years of age. Can Queille, whoever picks, if he goes to another team, could he end up, taking his game to another level and end up entering the top 6 or end up being a complimentary player for a team, even on a top line? But let's take a look at the Montreal Canadiens. Even if he stays what he is right now, and he's a big body on the third line, you can always use that. His 3-year contract is up, which had a cap hit of $828,333. Once again, restricted free agent. Craig, would this be a player that, if you were Jeff Gordon and Kent Hughes, that would be of interest to you? Yes or no, and why?
Well, I'll answer the question, yes. And he'd be of interest to you. But there's lots of players that are of interest to teams. There are so many. So I had to answer the question first on Queille. But now what you have to do is okay, what's the calculation on being able to acquire the player? Okay, so you're going, okay, what would an offer sheet look like? What do you just said third line player. Okay, great. You're going to pay a third line player $7 million?
No.
Well, then he doesn't become interest to you. Do you think you're going to get him at $4 million and be able to get the player?
I would say probably. There's a chance.
I would say not a chance.
You would say not a chance, eh?
Not a 20-goal scorer, $4 million?
Yeah.
Give me a break.
Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah.
Not a
23
chance.
years old, yeah, with the potential of being a 30-plus goal scorer. Yeah, you're right.
Well, let me say he's a 20. We know he's a 20.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
How are you going to get the player now?
Yeah. Is it possible that teams, pick up the phone, call the other GM and say, listen, I'm thinking of offer sheeting your player. I don't want to do that to you. Want to work out a deal?
That happens all the time. Brian Burke did that to get Phil Kessel.
Yeah.
He did that in Toronto. And he ended up giving up the 2nd and 9th picks that ended up being Tyler Seguin and Dougie Hamilton. But that's exactly what Brian did. Brian threatened the offer sheet and then said, here, I'll make a deal with you. And so Boston said, okay, no problem. We'll do that. And they carried forth. But keep this in mind, Tony.
Yes.
How do you acquire the player?
Yeah.
That's the first thing you got to be thinking about. There's dozens of players that interest teams all around the league, including the Montreal Canadiens. How do you get the player?
Well,
you can go offer him. You go offer him 7.5 times 3 years, and I think you'll get Queille.
Yes.
But unless you're projecting him to be a 35 goal scorer, that's not. I don't think that's the value of Queille.
I hear you. You can always overpay, but in the end, overpaying ends up being bad business. I get you. And we have to also say that even though we're having this discussion, there are a ton of teams, by the way, probably 2/3 of the league that have a ton of cap space. So it will, even though Jeff Gordon says that he thinks it could be a trend, at the same time, it could be difficult because the cap going up, teams have cap space, and they'll probably end up matching unless there's a ludicrous deal, of course. There's another player that came up as well. Before we get to another player, actually, what do you think Queille's ceiling is?
No, I think he's a 20-25 goal scorer. I think what he showed this year is legitimate. I was going range. He's big. He's strong. He's learned how to be a powerful guy and assert himself. But I think he's in that 20 to 25 goal range and 50 points. That's a good player. That's a good player. And maybe you say, wait a second, with the cap going up, maybe 7.5. Maybe I'm underestimating what the value of that player is. Maybe he is worth 7.5. But when it's all said and done, these are the things that you got to evaluate. What is his ceiling? What do we think he can do? And what value are we placing on him? Maybe the Montreal Canadiens, why don't we take Montreal out of this? Maybe a team goes, hey, listen, we think this guy could be a 35 goal scorer. We're going to put him on our top line. Yeah. $7.5 million is going to be a bargain. That type of assessment could come in as well. And certainly how teams assess players and their potential and what that ceiling is going to be different depending on where you're at. I mean, when offer sheets went in on Keith Tkachuk and Joe Sakic and Thomas Vanek and those guys, everybody knew how good they were. There wasn't any projections. Like this now, because again, Dylan Holloway, remember what I said about Doug Armstrong? He didn't give up. He gave up a second and third round draft pick to get those two guys, and he got value contracts.
How about if you're part of the duo, Gordon and Hughes, and you're in a really good position because your core is signed long term?
Yep.
You can't end up losing anyone to offer sheets. Maybe the next guy you might end up losing is probably going to be, I don't know, Jacob Fowler or whatever, right? Like, and that's 4 years from now, he signed his 3-year entry-level contract, right? Are you more inclined to do it? Because if one of the reasons why you didn't do it is you're scared that it's going to be done to you, but now all of your guys are signed up long-term, you're in a good position.
All you're trying to do is do what's best for your team and not leave yourself vulnerable, Tony. That's the everyday job of a manager. You're not trying to leave your team vulnerable in terms of draft picks. You're not trying to leave your team vulnerable in terms of prospects. You're not trying to leave your team vulnerable in terms of financial considerations with respect to contracts. You're never trying to leave your team vulnerable. So bottom line is, this is a tool and a mechanism that's available to teams. There are pitfalls. Make no mistake about it. Just like there's pitfalls of trading a first-round draft pick for short-term help. And, where do the Colorado Avalanche find themselves after trading Cal Ritchie in a first-round draft pick to get Brock Nelson?
Yeah.
I know what they were trying to do, but the pitfall now is they didn't win, and they've lost a first-round draft pick and a really good prospect. So you don't want to leave yourself vulnerable, and there's different ways that you got to go. You got to make sure that you're aware of that, and I don't think it's different for any team.
There's a left winger in Buffalo that we're going to talk about next. JJ Peterka. Let's bring him up. Here you have it. Talk about good seasons. Back-to-back, 28 a year ago, 27 this past season in 5, so 1 goal less in 5 games less. 41 assists up from 22 assists the year before. 68 points up from 50 the year before. This is a player who is on the serious rise, as you can see here, Craig. First full season in the National Hockey League, 12 goals, 32 points. Second season, 28 goals, 50 points. Third season, 27 goals, 68 points. I mean, at this pace, we're talking about a player who could very well be a point-per-game player as early as next season. He's 6 foot tall. He's not the biggest, but if you're looking to bolster your top 6 and you're looking for talent, a left-handed shot who can play both left wing and right wing, JJ Peterka, who had a cap hit of $855,000, once again, 23 years of age, just like Queyle, RFA. His deal is up. And if you asked me a question before, how much money are you going to have to give a guy who scored 20? I'll ask you the question. Craig, how much money would you have to give a guy who scored 27 and 28 the year before?
Well, if I want to get the player, I'm giving him 9.36. I'm giving him $9,360,152.
Let's bring back
8-year deal. On an 8-year deal.
Yeah, so he would cost you 2 firsts if the team doesn't match.
Oh no. He'll cost the first, second, and third.
First, second, and third, correct, because you're in between the threshold of 7.02 and the 9.360, and not in between the 9.360 and the 11.7. So a first, a second, and a third-round draft pick for JJ Peterka.
Yep.
Perfect. Toronto got a player who's a stud. But, here's the deal. Everyone knows it, including the Toronto Maple Leafs. His name, Matthew Knies. He's a first-line winger on that team. 29 goals, 29 assists, 58 points in 78 games, up from 35 points the year before and 15 goals. This guy, there's, real good first year in the National Hockey League. Very good second year in the National Hockey League. Shows that he can put points up in the playoffs as well. 4 points in his first 7 playoff games. 3 points in his next 7. 7 points in these last 10, 5 of which are goals. He's RFA at age 22, a cap hit of $925,000. I would imagine that you can offer this guy the world and the Toronto Maple Leafs will match, but you could put them in a lot of trouble should they want to retain Mitch Marner. Now, most believe that Marner's gone. I don't know if that's going to be true or false. We'll have to wait and see. But if Toronto have any intention of bringing back Marner and Tavares, you can put them in a world of trouble by offering this guy the moon, Craig. So let me start by this. You think Marner and Tavares will be back?
I think it's still dependent on how the Leafs do this year. I think John Tavares will be back. I do. But, I mean, I have no reason to believe that's cemented. I think John Tavares, if he hits the open market, will be pleasantly surprised by some of the offers that he will get on the open market. So if the Leafs want to get him tied up for 2 or 3 more years, I think they can do that, but it's not good. It's not at $6 million a year unless John just says, hey, I don't want to play anywhere else, so I'm willing to take that. It doesn't feel like Mitch Marner is going to be a Toronto Maple Leaf beyond this year. It doesn't feel like that. But I can't speak for Mitch. I mean, he grew up a Leafs fan. He was drafted by the Leafs. He's been a hell of a player for the Leafs. And if it was me, I'd be signing Mitch Marner. That's all I know is that if it was me, but I can't speak to that. So, again, though, I'm going to remind you, and I think this is where you have to be, the goal of the offer sheet is to acquire players, not put other teams in a hurting position.
I think Mitch
That's
Marner's
not the objective of this exercise. It's to acquire players. Yeah,
I think Mitch Marner is the best player in the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with that. I think Mitch has been one of the top players in the NHL.
He's been there for 9 years. 5 years he's been their leading point getter, and 4 years has been Austin Matthews. But in the playoffs, he puts up better numbers than Matthews. I don't think what I said is far fetched. Now I do believe that Matthew
not
Knies,
at all.
I do believe that Matthew Knies has the potential to be, a point per game player and more, and maybe even hit the 100 one day going forward as well. I think he's that good. So, what kind of offer would you make this player?
Well, if you think he's going to be a 100-point guy, Tony, you just blow it out the door. You give him $11,700,191. So it's only 2 firsts, 1 second, and 1 third.
Wow. Do you think he's going to be a 100-point guy going forward?
No. But I think he's going to help your team win. I think he's going to be a player. He can play with really good players. And again, I look at Matthew Knies as somebody who's the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And the whole extends to him and what he gives to others and what he gives to your team. He's a unique player. And I think that Matthew is somebody that teams covet, including the Toronto Maple Leafs. And they're rare. These players don't come along very often. What did Brady Tkachuk sign for? I believe Brady was $8 million, somewhere around that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
I know you're going to pull it up. Right?
I will. Yeah, I will pull it up right now. So Brady Tkachuk's contract was 7 years, 57.8.2 cap hit.
8.2, right? So he signed that contract a couple years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when the cap wasn't going up and we didn't know where the thing. Well, now we know what the cap is. It's up. Yeah. So Matthew Knies now becomes more than that.
Yep. All right. In ending, and we'll end with this guy. The dream, of course, for the Canadiens is a second line center, and there's one in Anaheim, and he's good. Let's bring him up. His name, Mason McTavish. Went from 17 goals in year 1 to 19 goals in year 2 in less games, 16 less games, to 22 goals this past season in 76 games. Went from 43 points, 42 points to 52 points. He 6'1", about 220 pounds. He looks to be just what the doctor ordered for a second line centerman. I don't know how many points he'll put up in his career. I believe that I think he could be a point per game player, but who knows? Would he be a good fit for the Canadiens' second line as their center?
He'd be a great fit. He wouldn't be a good fit. He'd be a great fit. I mean, the way he plays the game, he plays the game in a bull-like fashion. He's got a great shot. He's only getting better as time goes on. He's wired to win. He's a competitor to the nth degree. He burns hot. Oh, he's from Carp, Ontario, which isn't that far away from Montreal. His agent is Pat Morris, who has always been able to get value, big time value for his clients on contracts. Listen, you know, when players like this come along, and I know we're going to the top end, and maybe at a later date we can talk about some of the other players like Doug went after and Broberg and Holloway. But this is a big time player. Okay, this guy's a big time player, and to me, like I would do the same thing with Mason McTavish that I just said with Matthew Knies.
Okay, so if there's one that you're Gordon and Hughes out of the list that I gave, or maybe even others, but if there's one that you think you're going to swing for the fences, who you
Mason McTavish all day long.
Yeah,
all day long because you have Slavkovsky, so you know Slavkovsky's a reasonable facsimile of Matthew Knies. In fact, I don't think people would say that Matthew Knies is better than Slavkovsky. So you have Slavkovsky, you have Demidov, you have Suzuki, you have Caulfield. You need that second line center. There's no evident player there, and you got Mason McTavish. Like that's the guy. Like easy for me.
It's the perfect way to end the Sick Podcast today. Craig Button says if the Montreal Canadiens are eyeing one guy at the forward position and they're eyeing a centerman, the player to go after is Mason McTavish. We'll see what happens. Thanks, Craig. We'll talk to you soon. Special thanks to all of our sponsors, Energy Transportation Group, Bittt Tibi, Playground, Souvlaki Authentique, and Betway. Special thanks to Shane Gaumont and Master Control. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll be back tomorrow. Same time, same place. It's a Sick Podcast. I'm Marinaro.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. LaVie.tv, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.